Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Emotivism is a moral theory. What does it actually say? Before worrying about whether it's right or wrong, whether it applies to all cases or just some cases, what is it actually saying? What did you get from the reading? MacIntyre sort of gave a few kind of definitions at a couple points. If you were on the spot and you had to explain it to somebody else who wasn't in this class, what would you say? I'll get you started. It's a moral theory that does what? Yeah.
Based on the person's emotions, like you act out your emotions.
It's based on the person's emotions. Okay, that's a good start. In what way? Yeah.
It expresses your preference to things.
What expresses your preference?
Your judgments.
Yeah. Okay. So with emotivism, when you're making moral judgments or using moral language, well, he uses moral terms like good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, that sort of stuff. What are you really doing? You are really just expressing, as he puts it, feelings, or attitudes. I would extend it to include desires, maybe an expression of your own self-interest. Let me read you one or two things that people who actually were emotivists said about this sort of thing. MacIntyre's not off, but sometimes it's nice to hear it in people's own words. So this is A.J. Ayer. He was a famous philosopher. He was associated with what's called logical positivism, but I don't know that'll mean that much to you. He says, here's my view. In saying that a certain type of action is right or wrong, I'm not making any factual statement. Not even a statement about my own state of mind. I'm not saying that this is how I think about it. What I am doing is expressing certain moral sentiments. And of the man who's ostensibly contradicting me, who's taking a different position, is merely expressing his moral sentiments. He says there's plainly no sense in asking which of us is in the right. Neither of us is asserting a genuine proposition. Neither of us is actually saying something meaningful. We're just expressing how we feel about things. So if I look at somebody doing an action, I say that person is bad, or that person is disgusting, or that's a horrible thing to do, and you say I think they ought to do it. I think that's a great thing that they're doing it. Ayer would say, well, neither one of us is right, neither one of us is wrong. We're just expressing how we feel about it. And then he says, in every case in which one would commonly be said to making an ethical judgment, the function of the relevant ethical word, so not all the stuff, but just the ethical terms, is purely emotive. It's used to express feeling about certain objects, but not to make any assertion about them. He says it's worth mentioning also that ethical terms don't serve only to express feelings. They also have another purpose, which is to arouse feeling in other people, right? And thereby to motivate them to action. So if I see you doing something, what's a typical thing that professors get on students about?
Cell phone.
Oh, perfect, yeah. Okay, so you're on your cell phone, and I say, you know, you really shouldn't do that. And what am I doing? I'm expressing my disapproval. And I'm trying to get you to feel that you really ought not to do that. I'm trying to get you to feel bad in some way. I'm trying to have you reflect on your own thing. I'm trying to get you to feel in such a way that if the person next to you also gets out their cell phone, you don't like that. Right? You don't see them as now akin to you. You're more like me and you say, that's a bad thing. Meaning, I don't like that. And that'll get you to act differently. Right? And I could do it in a lot of different ways. I could like blow up at you, get that cell phone off, right? I mean, that would be one way to do it. That might produce more emotion quickly in you. Or I might be, you know, I'm very sweet. You know, we're not supposed to have cell phones in this classroom. We have this kind of implicit contract here. You know, it might be something like that. But if air is right, all we're doing, it's the same thing. We're really just trying to express a certain disapproval and get you to feel that disapproval yourself and get you to change your behavior. What's something that students want professors to do that they typically don't do that they should do? You know, not like give everybody A's or something like that, but something that professors fall down on the job sometimes with doing. There's got to be stuff that you guys would like to see, yeah.
Getting work back on time.
Oh, that's a big one. Work with good feedback delivered, you know, say within a week, right? Is a week a good amount of time? I mean, even that's kind of pushing it for some things. Okay, so you say to me then something like, you really ought to get we're handing in the work on time ourselves, you really ought to get the work done on your part on time. You know, you should be held to the same standards as us. What you're doing there is you're expressing a kind of positive attitude. And, or, you know, if you say, Dr. Sadler's a good professor so far because he actually, you know, graded our stuff within the first week. We'll see how that goes the rest of the semester, right? You're expressing approval of me or my actions. And then I can feel, you know, warm and fuzzy inside. You guys, I don't know if they had this when you guys were kids, cold and pricklies and warm and fuzzies. It was like a kindergarten thing when I was a kid. You know, probably they change all these things. But that's what the emotivist theory is saying our moral language basically is. We're expressing how we feel, what our attitudes are, whether we approve or disapprove of things. And when we disagree about it, there's nothing to be done other than try to maybe bring pressure to bear on somebody. You can't actually rationally argue them into it, because if you could, they'd already hold that position. Yeah.
So is no one right and no one wrong?
It's interesting to ask that. In a certain way, yes. Nobody would be right, nobody would be wrong. We all just have our own views. Now, like some emotivists have pointed out, that doesn't prevent us from feeling that other people are wrong. One of the guys who I'm putting a link to in the supplemental stuff for you, but I'm not suggesting you have to read for this class. He was pointing out that, you know, if we're emotivists, that doesn't mean that we have to say Hitler's A-okay. We can feel that what he's doing is definitely wrong. We can, you know, watch footage of the concentration camps and say, this is horrible. But all we're actually doing is expressing our feelings. We're not actually right in the sense that it conforms to any sort of objective moral order. And of course, you know, Hitler apparently didn't think that what he was doing was wrong, because, or you know, most of those other people that were lined up with him, they thought that was the right, the good thing to do. But all they were doing, you know, on their part, was expressing their feelings. They were doing a lot more than expressing them, weren't they? Actions are significant. So in that sense, yeah, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. We all have a sense that we're right and the other person's wrong. Now, that's not the whole story, though. Because emotivists, like MacIntyre points out, if you really buy into this theory, then you probably think that people should quit all this moralizing. And if you say that, you're actually saying that other people are wrong, aren't they? That we should abandon all this, highbrow moral theory stuff. And if you don't abandon it, if you're like, somebody like me who likes Aristotle, then I'm wrong in a certain way from a motivist perspective. So there's two answers to that, really. But it's an important question. This other guy, Stevenson, he's a particularly important emotivist thinker. He wrote at the end of one of his essays, ethical statements are social instruments. They are used in a cooperative enterprise in which we are mutually adjusting ourselves to the interests of others. So there are ways in which we try to make people feel the way that we want them to feel and do the things that we want them to do. And everybody else is doing the same thing to us. So when your mom disapproved of something that you were doing or didn't like one of your friends and said they're a bad person and you're doing the wrong thing, all she was doing was expressing her feelings, but she was trying to get you to feel likewise. And when you responded in kind, I suppose, and said, no, they're a great person, you were just expressing your feelings and trying to get your mom to see things your way. Yeah.
So motivists are saying that no one's really telling you what to or to not do, but they're just saying how they feel, hoping will change your view.
It's not quite so innocent as that. They think that we're constantly exerting a kind of pressure on each other to change the way that we see things. And our society does that too, they think too. If we're emotivists and I want you to stop doing the action that you're doing and I really hate what you're doing, feel really strongly about it, I don't know that we could say that I'm just trying to offer you another way or suggest that you should go a different way or something like that. I'm really trying to force you into it in some cases.
But then in that case, they're saying that there is a right and wrong.
No, again, the emotivist thinks there's only right and wrong from the perspective of, how I see it or how you see it. There is no universal right and wrong. This is one of the problems with the theory. So you're kind of leading us ahead to some of the criticisms of the theory. So emotivism is, like MacIntyre says, it's the doctrine all evaluative judgments and specifically moral judgments are nothing more than expressions of preference, attitude, or feeling insofar as they're expressive of those things in character. So what are the implications of this? I put some of this in Eiler for you. Moral claims aren't true and false. They're indexed to the individual person. Even more importantly, if emotivism actually is right, then there's no rational way to decide disagreements. So when it comes to big issues, the moral things that we, say, get involved in politics about, or activism, we just feel different ways about it. We may produce theories and we may make arguments, but that's just sort of window dressing from an emotivist perspective. It's not really what's going on. Those are words being used kind of as tools. Now, one of the things that I want to point out with this, so MacIntyre says that if somebody's saying from an emotivist perspective, X is good, what they're saying is something like, I like X, you should like it too. Or hooray X, or I approve of X, or I have a positive feeling or attitude towards X. And you can ask why a person has this positive feeling, right? Now, here's the thing. So you can come up with a story about why people have the particular feelings they do, right? If you're an emotivist, it doesn't make sense to ask, should they feel the way they do? Do they have good reason to feel that way? if you're an emotivist, you sort of take that out of the toolbox. Or ought they feel that way? Why is that? Well, anytime you're bringing in these moral terms, you've got the same problem again, don't you? If you say that, well, let's take some sort of thing that we probably can all agree shouldn't have good feelings about. Like,
Heroin.
what's that?
Heroin.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one. I mean, heroin addicts would probably disagree
Yeah, I was
with
just
you,
gonna.
but you know, I think we can have a consensus that you shouldn't shoot up heroin, right? As a matter of fact, let's even broaden that. Don't shoot up heroin. Don't smoke crack. Don't. The other big one. Don't smoke meth. You know, don't use it in any form. There's other ways it can be used, of course. Those are the big three, you know, at least in our country right now.
Did you say Coke?
No, because there's not many people doing coke as there is crack and heroin. But we can add it in. And we can also say don't do PCP because that's bad for you too.
It's not that bad.
PCP. Okay, so we say you shouldn't do these sorts of things. Now, from an emotivist perspective, all we're doing is expressing our disapproval, right? And the other person who says, "But I like crack. It's really nice," you know, or somebody else who's like a contrarian says, "Well, I think people should be able to do whatever they want, even if it's crack," right? They're just expressing their feelings as well. And if the emotivists are right, there's no rational way to decide between this. And you can't even say about the person who, say, likes crack. You can't say, well, that's a mistaken point of view that you've got there. You shouldn't feel that way. There's something wrong with you. Because again, what are you doing? You're just expressing your feelings. You're not actually expressing anything that has any real content, just feelings.